Welcome back to Driven for Health. I'm Coach Brian Perron, and this is episode 77. Already, keep moving along, so keep up with me. Today, we're going to tackle some mindset. We're going over fitness and what it means to live a driven life, especially from someone who's been in the profession, a retired FBI agent, Eric Robinson. He's been in the Bureau was in for 24 years and was a former SWAT operator as well. And he helps get the guys fit and in shape and make sure that they are qualified to meet physical standards. We're going to go through some of the personalities, the things that make the guys better or worse in terms of how they fall into just even the fitness and then what that means for the rest of their career. And we'll go over some of our training. We both ran very similar. We would have probably been running neck to neck in our race, and he would have pulled ahead at the end. I'm like, dang it, there he goes. But we'll talk about some fitness and some food and different things as well, and the demands of his unique shift in his career, too, from being a Baptist preacher to being in the FBI. Welcome, Eric, to the show.
Thanks, Brian. Appreciate you making some time for me.
Yeah, definitely. It was really great connecting with you yesterday in our pre-interview, and I said, yep, this is going to be a great conversation. And let's open up with the marathon and the training and the exercise, because that's the easiest, obviously, talking point here and connection. What got you into running, and what was it that shifted that?
I had a buddy in college who was a cross-country runner, and he encouraged me to do a 5K with him when we were in school. And I thought, well, that was pretty good. That was fun. I was fairly lean at the time, too, and just kept up with running as a hobby along the way. But as a pastor, I ended up having a little more free time where I could fit running in, getting longer runs. But the marathon running was an outcropping from actually a health issue.
Right.
I had stress-related headaches as a pastor every single day, every day for about 2 years. And I found that the only thing that brought any type of alleviation was running. Yeah. So running was a regular part of what I do, but I'd go out and do a few miles. And I realized, oh, wow, the longer I stay out, the longer I won't have a headache, because eventually there'd be a little afterglow, but then here comes the headaches again.
Right.
And so, okay, I'm going to run 8 miles now, because that'll at least give me an hour and a half, and then 10, and on from there, until I finally thought, oh, I'm getting better at this. Let's keep training. 97 was my first marathon.
Yeah.
And I did well. I was running in Western New York, hills everywhere.
Yeah.
I qualified for Boston and ran it in 2000. And I remember like the hill just outside my door was so steep. I'm running and I'm like on mile 22, and I asked somebody, like, where's Heartbreak Hill? And he said, yeah, it was a mile back there. And I thought, oh, okay. That was a rise.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember Boston in 2:04 for me. That was my second marathon. And yeah.
Wow.
So we're in a good class.
Well, that's a class I've graduated from, because along the way, doing a few things to my body, it's harmed my back. I got to the point where I was trying to keep up, but just the pounding.
Right, of course. But we shifted.
Definitely got things cracked. Yeah.
And the biggest part that I hear is you used exercise to relieve challenges, pressure, stress that was coming in your life. And a lot of the guys that are listening to this, they're in our age range, 40 and up, and they're dealing with a lot of different things, from pressures at work to full-time family. I have 4 kids. My oldest just qualified for swimming at States, which means that we have an extra week of swimming. Then we have more driving, and we have to go 90 minutes away to the venue now instead of 25 minutes away, and I spent probably 6 hours this past week and the week prior at the swim meet and all, and so it's just, so there's a lot of different things going on. But I find that the really unique piece is that you found that exercise did help alleviate some of the pressure, the stress, and you took and ran with it, pun intended.
Yeah. Yeah. It was so keep this in mind. I was running before we had iPods, and you can't
Yes.
really have a
Right.
Walkman jiggling the whole time. So,
Right.
there are times I'm out for 2.5 hours and it's just this. But that
Yeah.
also allowed for just the freedom to let things out, to think them through, and to just have an empty mind. Because you might want to try to think of something, but inevitably the mind just goes blank. And
Right.
that was very useful for me at that time.
Hmm. I would agree with you. Whenever I was in workouts, especially the harder or the more involved they were, the less I thought about anything. And it was such a easy time to check out of the day to day challenges that came up, regardless of whatever age you are, because you always have challenges. It's just it's life. It's always throwing curveballs at you. There's always something to change. What was bringing on some of that stress and challenge in your career choice?
Well, people are different. And for me, this is just how my mind was working. We had built a church that was meant to reach out to folks who didn't go to church, who might be kind of outcasts. And we had people with a
Sure.
lot of problems.
That's the point of church, right?
It is.
Right?
We didn't
Right. I
we
love it.
weren't looking to just bring in people from a different church to go, "Oh, we'll like
Right,
this and we'll give money over here." We were looking to
right.
bring in people who just didn't feel like they fit in. And the unfortunate part of that is people of that nature bring a lot of problems with them. I just did not find myself capable of letting go of those issues.
Mhm.
When somebody from the congregation said, "Oh, I think my son is an addict," and another says, "My wife is leaving me," and another one saying, "I can't afford groceries."
Those are heavy.
I wasn't able to let that go, and that and other issues just kept compounding. And I saw every doctor. I took every ibuprofen related medication, and nothing
Right.
worked. One doctor said, "This is definitely stress related. Have you considered not being as stressed?" And that's what led me to a career change, because I told my wife one day, I have to find something different. I can't do this anymore. And
Right.
from Baptist pastor, I applied for two jobs. One I was overqualified for, one I was underqualified for, and I got this one.
Okay,
So
okay.
and it worked out.
Yeah, it did. Looking back, it unfolded well. Now, in that position, I feel that way too. Any person that I've worked with, I've been doing this for 23 years. They're like my child. They're someone that is a part of me, and I want them to be successful. And we know that the success is in their hands to create, but you want to foster that. You feel responsible. I
Yeah.
recall one time I was personal training. It was in my backyard where I'm usually my studio is my barn gym, but it's snow and it's just insulated, so it would be 30 degrees out there, me standing around freezing. I'm inside right now in my winter studio, I suppose. But would train out there. Two people wanted to quit basically in the same week, and there goes a couple $100 in the month, and I'm freaking out. Well, that ended me on the couch for 2 nights because I was emotional and strained and stressed. My life says, what are you doing?" Basically, as you call me out, it's like, dude, what's going on? Because you're emotionally spewing over everything here, and it's not good. Now, so you took to running as a culprit or a way to ease that pain. What are ways that you've seen other people take that route of I'm getting stress and pain, and you dealing with them? Because there's probably somebody listening in that is going through an enormous amount of stress or strain, and they might be choosing a bad making bad choices instead of maybe exiting the stressful situation. They just keep wanting to double down and just play provider or whatever role or fulfillment that they need out of that.
Yeah, the mind's a very dangerous place, and I found that running helped me get out of that.
Hmm.
Now for me, it's now I lift weights. I can't
Yeah.
run as much anymore. Now I lift weights, and I've got a punching bag. Those times to just release. If I leave and I'm exhausted, when I work out in my barn, if I'm exhausted, it's almost like a blanket just wrapped around me. That being
Yeah.
able to just tear down the body in a healthy way, um, the there's a freedom in feeling like I've released something here. I've gotten away from it. If there's a perseveration going on just over and over, nothing's being solved. Thinking
Right.
about what he said and what I should have said back, or maybe I can solve the problem this way. There's a limited need and usefulness about that. There's
Right.
only you spend your time, you think about what needs to be done, and then you just need to let it go and
Right.
let life play itself out.
But I would totally agree. Gentlemen, if you're listening in, what Eric is saying, what I'm saying, and would agree upon is there are multiple ways to relieve stress. A lot of them take you further down the wrong road with money, sex, alcohol. The list goes on with addictive behaviors that men can do and women, the humans do. But finding exercise as a keystone to help alleviate stress was pivotal, and it's paved the way for a 254 marathon. Was it
252. Don't hey,
250? Oh yeah, yeah. We need those
it's
extra
2
2 hours.
minutes.
Close.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
We need that. I know. I ran the Marine Corps, and I got 256, and I just wanted to be faster. Technically, I think that's what that was. I was projecting there. But you're running, and you think if I go to the bathroom, I'm going to be at least 30 seconds slower. Which over the next 5 miles, I have to run 5 seconds faster per mile. And it's just
Well,
like,
well, and without getting into too much detail, Brian, like if you're running marathons, training is the most important. Second most important is evacuating before you run.
yes, of
And
course.
and I would always take like the night before take Senecot. And the my 252 marathon, nothing happened. And so I'm running, and
Oh,
then I'm at mile 8 and go, "Oh man."
I
And then I'm at
didn't.
mile 10 and I go, "Well, I'm not going to hold this for 18 more miles." My fastest marathon, actually, I had a pretty decent pit stop, but obviously I was running negatives the rest of the way. I was just passing everybody.
Right. Oh, that's so funny. Yep. You stress about that. We'll talk about
Yeah.
stress. The key takeaway that Eric and I are saying is use exercise, use activity, move your body to alleviate stress, because that is going to be the long term best way for you to decompress, to release the steam and the kettle that's going to boil over. And boiling over, as just some of the examples of the challenges of the congregation, it causes real big problems for people. Let's transition into FBI agent. Very cool. That's one of the unique things. Like, I haven't talked to an FBI agent. Let's jump in to talk with Eric about his experience. So tell me, what's the career? What were some of the really good takeaways that you had got from it initially, and we'll keep rolling with it.
Well, I started in Chicago, did 8 years there. We had two drug squads. I worked on one of the drug squads looking into the cartels. After 5 years, they dissolved my drug squad. I presume because we had taken care of the drug problem in Chicago and it was all maintenance from there. But then moved on to working gangs and public corruption
Ooh,
along with civil rights.
big
And
stuff.
yeah, finished out in Chicago on the public corruption squad where we were wiretapping the sitting governor, Rod Blagojevich, as he was trying to sell Barack Obama's seat. And I can tell you from that experience, that governor did nothing. We'd listen to phone calls, and he would he would call Dusty Baker, who was manager of the Cubs at the time, and give them lineup advice. And I guess that's what you do as governor.
Yeah. Just what was he actually doing anything? Yeah. We
He
could
wasn't.
question that about a lot of our administrations throughout
Yeah.
time. We'll let
From
that
the
one go.
Yeah, from there in 2010, I moved on to the Cleveland division, where
Okay.
I've worked
Yep.
just about everything: human intelligence, national security, organized crime, crimes against children. So gotten a good sense of most of the violations that the FBI works, um,
Yep.
and got to see some FBI agents whenever there's a downtime, whether it's waiting on a drug dealer to come or we've just finished an operation, sit around and tell stories. And so as we tell these stories, I still I I had been in the FBI for 24 years, but it still was unique enough to me where, as we're telling these very common stories, I can step back and go, man, that's remarkable. Like, that's actually a very cool story. I put all those stories into a book I'd written as well,
Oh, that's
because
awesome.
just looking back, working crimes against children with teenage prostitutes and pimps, or working national security and arresting actual legitimate terrorists who are going to kill people. It's kind of interesting now that I look back.
Yeah, very interesting. I can share tons of stories that highlight throughout my career different people that have made exponential amount of progress and success and what the impact is on their life. So we all have stories that we can tell from the life that we live, or we travel a lot. My wife is a wanderlust and she loves to travel. She actually just left our family today. My wife left me, but she went to Orlando with her girlfriend and she's going to be there for 4 days. I'm holding down with the kids. Hopefully, no one needs dad while we're
Yeah.
talking.
Yeah.
But we've traveled all 50 states. We're on to multiple countries and going to try and do all 7 continents and just unique pieces of it. Is there one story that stands out that is just one of your favorites of taking down the big guy or?
Well, so I worked criminal violations for 15 years and then got transferred to a national security or counterterrorism squad. And the first case I had on that squad was on a terrorist who was charged with providing financing to Anwar al-Awlaki, who was a Yemeni American who was a spokesperson for Al-Qaeda. So we had charges on him already. And when I came onto the squad, there was a report from one of his fellow inmates that he wanted to kill his judge. He
Okay.
believed if his judge was out of the way, a different judge would give him leniency, and then he could get out and now fulfill his desire to kill people. So we worked up a case of murder for hire. The inmate who was with him was just some hillbilly. He was just a white guy with no education. He was actually in prison for production of child pornography, but it was kind of one of those penthouse letters type situation where he had videotaped himself having sex with a 17-year-old, which is child pornography,
Right.
convincing her that he could get her in the movies somehow. And when I'd asked our federal prosecutor, and that was a state charge, I asked our federal prosecutor, would you even charge him if this is a case I brought to you? He said, absolutely not. But that guy got 40 years. The cooperator got 40 years in prison because every time he appeared before the judge, he was incorrigible, and the judge just kept hammering him. He worked well for us. We put a tape recorder on a guy, and I won't go into all the details of how difficult it is to get a recorder on an inmate and send him back into prison, but we did that. And he first came to us saying, hey, this guy is saying he wants to kill his judge. So we send him back in and say, have him tell you that again. And he goes, hey, when you're talking about killing the judge, tell me about that again. And dang it, he told him again. So here we are, and we had a new case. That that individual, Yahya Farouk Muhammad, ended up getting 26 and a half years for both of those violations to be deported
Uh,
afterwards. And the cooperator ended up taking nothing. He wanted us to completely erase the 40-year sentence, which we couldn't do. And so he goes, screw you guys. And so he did it for absolutely free.
oh my goodness. Pretty wild. One of my good friends, he works at a jail and county jail, and the stories that he shares or
Oh,
tells or different things are pretty wild. I said, Dan, just so you know, it's not in my mind or brains ever go to jail. So, just
oh.
not interested in that being a life experience that I get into. No, thank you.
And that's what he does for work.
Yeah.
That's
He's
what he
had some
shows up for.
pretty wild stories. Yeah, he shared one just the other day. It's like, wow, a guy punched another guy, and as a result of it, he broke his jaw and probably going to get 8 years for that 2 minute squabble
Yeah,
or
not worth it.
something because they said something to each other, and like it. So pretty wild. So you did some pretty hard stuff with the FBI, and the stories can go on. You ended up shifting into some fitness testing.
Yeah, there. So I was a field agent, like the majority of agents, and we have support staff, analysts, secretaries, all auto shop. I was a gun carrier, and there are ancillary jobs that people can take on as well: employee assistance, evidence recovery. Uh, my first side job, doing field work as well, doing investigations, was a fit instructor. And so that meant me testing applicants who came in. And in Chicago, we would have a large group coming through regularly recruiting. And remarkably, though, the the marks you have to hit, the form you need to carry out is all online, and people know what they've got to do.
Right.
I would say it's about 30% would pass.
Oh
And when I
my
say
gosh.
pass, that's at a minimum level. Like just
So you have
squeaking by.
10% that are doing it, but then another 20% of those 30 that are probably just like, wow, you were way out
Yeah,
of shape.
and
What did you do here?
they're showing up not ready. So
Pretty
that was
incredible.
eye-opening as well.
Right. Especially with the level of what I would believe FBI to attract. If I want to be an FBI, this isn't just like police. My Akron, Akron because you were in Cleveland. I'm not joining the Akron Police Department. I'm joining the FBI, and there would be a certain standard that I would want to raise up to. I also think that if I was in the FBI, I totally would have done this job. It just fits. It totally fits who I am and what I've done, and I would always do. I remember. We'll do a quick side note. We had this CrossFit gym back in 2010, 2011. We had this it was the intro workout. Eric wants to join CrossFit. You have to do a introductory conversation to introduce you to the gym and get to know you and all. And then we would talk about what CrossFit is, because this was before it hit mainstream.
Mhm.
There was say two, maybe three that were in a 15 or 20 mile surrounded area of where we were going. So it was starting to take shape. And then a year or two after, there was multiple CrossFit gyms in the area. So we literally just hit right before the wave of getting into the mass media and the CrossFit games becoming really big and actually on TV or whatever. I actually went to the CrossFit Games with my personal training client, Betsy Finley. It was a pretty cool experience. She won at the age of 60. But
Wow.
so we take people through the intro workout, and it was 500-meter row, 40 squats, 30 push ups, 20 sit ups, or 30 sit ups, 20 push ups, and 10 pull ups. So something I could do in 5 minutes
Right.
fast, and I'd be out of breath, but I boom, 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 all done. And the people I had, boy, there's still a Pinterest board up. I take pictures of people that weren't feeling well. I called it the pain cave, but people were just lose their marbles in a sense
Yeah.
from
And
it. And
probably their lunch too.
yeah, and that would be the impetus to help sway them to join up. Like, wow, you're really out of shape. You probably should join us so we can get you in shape. And it worked out pretty well, but
Yeah,
pretty
there's a lot
funny.
of motivating factors.
Yeah, definitely. So, doing the fitness test, you have people coming in. One thing I want to touch base on is the characteristics, the personality, the determiners of who would make it versus not. To for the guys listening in, what was the line or the difference of someone who had the intention, the integrity, or the key characteristics? What were those that got them to qualify versus fail out?
Yeah, and I can give you that example with two people. When I was in Chicago as an agent, there was a young woman who lived at home, taken care of by her family, and she had applied to get in the FBI, and she had failed the fit test, so they sent her back to her processing office, which is Chicago. And in the meantime, she's supposed to get better so that, in whatever it was, 30 days, then she would try out again, go to a class. And I remember sitting a wire tap with her and suggesting, like, hey, you know what? Push-ups are always there. They're right there all the time. If you got a floor, there's push-ups. And she
Yep.
goes, no, 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 no. I do my workouts later. And I said, oh, we can do them now too. We got a little lull in the wire. And she said no. And she never became an agent. And then there was another individual who was a buddy of mine. He was in Border Patrol, but he worked with us on a task force. And he was tall and a big guy. He carried his weight well, but it was just definitely too much weight. And I happened to be proctoring his fit test. I didn't know he was trying to be an agent with us. And when he came out, he failed pretty badly. And I said, hey, man, talking to you straight, you got to lose weight. You're just way too big. You're not going to be able to do the sit ups to form. You can't do push ups. You're not going to do a sprint or run. And the next time I saw him, maybe 90 days later, maybe a year later, I forget what it was, but he had dropped 75 pounds and he
Yeah.
was lean, and he has been an agent since then. So
Yeah.
the difference there was in much age and motivation. He was sticking his neck out on the line, possibly leaving another agency, looking bad if he failed.
Right.
The other was a young gal who just didn't have the experience. And if she didn't become an agent, then, she'd find something else. So the one who was already in Border Patrol understood a bit about what it's like to be a federal agent, and he valued that. The other one thought, oh, maybe this would be kind of cool. Might be nice to
Right.
join the FBI. And that obviously didn't drive her enough.
The reason why is a huge thing. So I would come across a lot of people in the military, and not so much in say police officers, first responders, but definitely military, where there's a strong line where your physical fitness test that you needed to do, if you didn't pass it, they're going to kick you out. I've got a guy right now in my program, The Call to Rise, and he is down 240 to 212 since we met. And he is very motivated, very driven. He's also doing a ruck marathon. And that's the type of personality we're working with. But
Good.
he's just
Yeah.
240 pounds, just fat. Ultimately, I had to call him out. He's like, I need to lose weight. And the military called me fat. So I need to lose weight if I want to keep my job, my post. And he's been flying. And there's a big difference in him going to obviously make the cut and do all the things that he needs to. Then
And I
people
think
don't.
intrinsic with people is once you start having success, it's a matter of having the drive to get there. But when you start running, it sucks when you
Yeah.
just start. But you have to realize there's a place that you hit where it goes, oh, okay, I can do this, and this is actually enjoyable. And it's the same with anything else. Can you get past that first stage where there's very little results in it and it really sucks?
And it doesn't take long to get past that. It's a heartbreak hill in a sense,
Yeah.
on the road. You do have to go through it. There is pain associated with it of you changing from where you are at, deconditioned, not in shape, to creating change and physical transformation to be able to do the activities. So we have to be able to get pushed through that. And it does share a little bit about your personality and about who you are as a person. If you want this goal, especially with a, probably could call it a basic PE test, right? It's not like they're having you try out for the Navy SEALs.
Yeah.
Just trying to get to the FBI. That's not the first level of it. It's like basic boot camp. Like just can we do some push-ups and sit-ups, and can you run your body in a certain time, right? So you also did SWAT operators. What was the difference between that and hanging out with those guys?
Yeah. At least in the Cleveland division, you guys aren't hanging on and wearing kit all day, having to do strenuous things without being in shape. So
Right.
the majority of FBI agents want to stay in shape. The totality of SWAT operators have to stay in shape because you're called on to be available to do significant things. For me,
Yeah.
I was a breacher on our team, which meant I've got to be able to swing a ram, swing a sledge, and open doors, because if the door doesn't get open, we're unsuccessful in the mission. So that meant
Right.
for me being ready. And our SWAT fit test is something we'd have to do on top of the agent fit test.
Right.
Sometimes the guys were idiots and want to do both in one day.
Oh, of
But
course, right?
oh,
The mentality,
God,
right?
let's just get out of the way. It was terrible. But you had to show that you were available as a SWAT operator. And that was important, not just because you wanted to look good and tough, but my physical ability meant safety for the guy next to me. So if I'm dropping out, then I'm not covering his back.
If you don't clear that door in the first swipe, it's just a loud door knock, and they know you're there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, oh, someone's at our front door, and they mean to come in. This wasn't just a knock.
So I wear a Garmin watch, and it checks my heart rate.
Yeah.
In July of 2024, we had an operation where it was a difficult terrain. The subject was a young man who had mental health issues, and he was trading in child pornography. There were a lot of factors that made it dangerous, and so the SWAT team was called for that. He broke out a window and charged the three of us. It was me and two other operators covering the side and the back, and he charged us with a bat. We gave him every opportunity to put it down. We ended up using deadly force on him. The point I'm making to this story is I went back to my phone and I looked, and you can tell the minute when he came at us, because my heart rate went to, I think, 175.
Yeah.
But then also we had to clear the house. So at that point it's down to 85. And if I'm not able to recover from that, then I got to tag out. I can't do my job, but I had to be in shape to do that.
Oh, definitely. I'm surprised it wasn't over 200.
It was
Shows
wild
a level of
because
fitness.
Because I asked one of the guys next to me, I said, "Hey, how long do you think that whole period was?" Because I'm going to tell you, it's probably 1/5 of that time. And we both thought it was like 5 minutes. It was 1 minute and 17 seconds.
Yep. It's a lot.
Yeah.
And if you're not in shape, that type of incident could cause some real physical harm to you.
Yeah.
Like a heart attack.
Yeah. Yep. So the guys on the team across the board stayed in shape.
Yeah.
I live in the Toledo area, so when we would have operations, I'd be getting up at 1:30 in the morning and driving a couple hours to Cleveland, and I was
right. It's about
typically
2 hours,
the first one there.
Like
yeah. So I was typically the first one there, except a few times where I'd hear clunking while I'm in the basement garage in the gym just above. And, here comes my buddy who got there so he get a workout in before our operation. Here he's lifting at 4 a.m. And I said, God bless you.
Yeah. Yeah. That's motivation. That's drive.
Yeah.
Excellent. Coming back from throughout the FBI, what were some of the lessons that you learned that you could share with the guys listening in?
As I mentioned, as a pastor, I had a hard time letting go of issues. I found that in law enforcement, we would have 12 guys that we were ready to indict on a drug case, for example, and the federal prosecutor would say, no, we're only going to do 6 of them. And so here's guys that we know are bad people that are not going
Right.
to get charged. And that was fine. I mean, we'd MF them and be pissed, and then you let it
Right.
go because it didn't matter. It wasn't part of my life.
Right.
So being able to let things go, realize the justice system or, another bad guy will take care of that was significant for me.
Right.
Also just learning how to manage some of the other terrible things that we saw, which came with just downloading that with a buddy, having people that you could
Right.
talk about. And it didn't have to be like, hey man, I'm really hurting and struggling from this. It's just recounting it,
Yep.
just having an openness. When we had that shooting a year and a half ago, it's difficult because you don't talk to anybody because the people around you are investigators too, and they can be called to a stand. It was a good shoot. It was clearly, but in the past, people were separated and set off to the side, their guns taken away, and they were cast out in a sense for their own safety. But now there's a psychological harm that's happening. So
Right.
my SWAT TL was smart enough to know and have done some research talking to other teams that have been in deadly force situations to say, no, we're going to put this person with that guy and he's going to follow him for whatever he needs throughout the day
Right.
and make sure that he's taken care of so that everybody was not cast away, separated and isolated.
Right. Right. I think that the connection piece is critical, especially for guys. I That's one of the reasons why I created the Call to Rise program was to help men get in shape and lose weight and eat better, but to have connection
Yeah.
because it's life is busy. Life is full. And if you're not purposely connecting with other men, then you are on your own in a sense. There's no one to vent, there's no one to decompress, there's no way to release. And as we said in the beginning of our conversation, exercise was a huge release and connection point. And I know that, you know that a lot of people do know that, but they don't do anything with it and seek it out. So they just end up getting more unhealthy. And so that is a huge point of having that connection with the other guys.
Yeah, absolutely. The guys on the SWAT team were the closest people to me. Without sounding silly about it, when you have guys next to you that are set to put their life for yours, it
Hmm.
makes a difference. And now those niggling little favors you might ask somebody, I know I'm going to a SWAT buddy because this guy's willing to die for me. Definitely he'll pick something up and stick it in the mail for me too.
Yeah, yeah. Yep. I totally agree with that. That's excellent. For you, what did the bureau teach you in life?
The Bureau, I don't know how much it taught me. It confirmed a lot
Okay.
that I found. So working in ministry before, you've got to show compassion, kindness. One of the
Right.
things that came up a lot, you've got to be curious with people and not have judgment right away. And I found that working with victims, witnesses, informants, even the bad guys, if I came with a closed mind and judgment, I know everything, shut your mouth, you're guilty, it was less profitable than coming in. Many times people would comment they'd had run-ins with law enforcement before, and here's one more, but it
Right.
was their first with the FBI, would often comment like, hey guys, I just appreciate you were professional with me. We took care of people. We're going to break in their door. We're going to put them in handcuffs and we're going to wrestle them if we need to. But I even had one father thank me for executing a search warrant and arresting his son because he knew his son was likely to be a mass shooter and he couldn't control him. So we took guns
Yeah.
out of the house and he thanked us. I'm amazed by that. So the
Right.
Bureau confirmed that treating people well, I can always play bad cop. That's always an option later.
Right.
But the longer I can play good cop
Right.
and show compassion to folks, it usually benefited the entire situation, both for me and for the
Sure.
other people too.
Agreed. I love that. That's people ask me different things, and that's one thing I'll tell them is leave the other person in a better spot than when I found them. And when you approach situations like that, regardless of the challenge, then yeah, there's a lot more cooperation and willingness to get to the outcome that you're after. For me, it's to help improve someone's life and get them to lose weight or whatever. And for you is to complete the
Get a
task.
confession. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, complete the task at hand and not have to wrestle someone. I'm sure that's not the first action you ever wanted to do going in. We're like, I don't really want to get sweaty going
Yeah.
into this job right here. Just can we just talk?
Yeah. We,
That'd
uh,
be
we had
good.
a situation once where we were there to arrest middle-aged man in his 50s, and his two nephews were there, and they came to the door ready to fight us. And we could have fought. I mean, we had more than they did, and we
Right.
had guns. And my hand on a shoulder and calmly talking to them to say, "Look, we have an arrest warrant. This is going to happen. Let's talk." And, I sent the rest of the team in while I calmed them down, and we effected the arrest. We could have gotten it done. We could have knocked them
Right.
around and cuffed them too, and so. But it just works smoother and better to say,
Right.
"I get it. You are embarrassed. You are put down a notch. You may have had experience with police before. Let's handle this in a logical, in the
Yeah.
best professional manner we can." And they
Right.
responded to it.
Yeah. Yep. Interesting, because it's like rolling dice, or would it be like rolling a dice or flipping a coin when you went into these situations? One being a lot more odds that it'll pan out well, or I don't know.
Yeah, you don't know, which is why we bring 20 people with rifles and an armored Bearcat. But typically, when somebody looks out the window and sees that they're surrounded and there's lasers coming through their window, it makes everything safer. If it's
Yeah.
just you and me going to a door, some guy might
Right.
go, I don't know, might be able to take them.
Yep. Force, and yeah, that helps. Well, let's start wrapping up. Tell us some more about the book that you have.
So I wrote a book. My wife said, "What do you want to do when you
Right.
retire?" And I said, "I don't know." And she says, "You should write a book." Well, my wife owns a company that publishes and markets books, and she says, "Go ahead and write a book." And so I sat down and I started recounting stories, and then,
Yeah.
oh, this is a good one too, and it just flowed from there. What I do from that is I tell my story of being a Baptist pastor and then moving into law enforcement for 24 years. But I also add to the stories how, in some sense, as we're discussing, how I took that past in ministry and I saw it coming to play in law enforcement. And after each chapter,
Right.
I finish with an after action review, which is considering what did we do right? What did we do wrong? How did this turn out? And then I add some other vignettes and stories that are related to that too. So the working title right now is Irreverent because I was irreverent and much of the stories are
Yeah.
quite irreverent. And it just gives I think, a unique perspective on what someone from my position, I hadn't met any pastors in the FBI. How does somebody preach in the pulpit one Sunday and then is in the FBI Academy the next Sunday?
Right. Oh, those
And
are
that'll be
great
that'll be
stories.
coming out in the fall.
Okay. Okay. Is it you sell more to write or just in the editing?
No, it's just in the editing.
Yeah.
I mean, I still go back and review and try to punch it up and tighten it, but I wrote it over a number of weekends and things just flowed. It's just like we were sitting in the Bearcat and I'm telling stories to a buddy like, hey, you remember that time this guy did this? And like, yeah, that was crazy. He jumped out of a window and broke his back. I said, yeah, crazy.
Yeah. Wow. That's wild. All right. So we can look for it in the fall.
Yeah.
That'll be good. All right. I want to thank you for your time and energy today coming on to the show. It seems like the one key takeaway is that you need to be fit for life, right? That's the opening piece, and the underlying tone of the conversation, getting into the fit test and being able to get into the FBI. And then be professional, treat people well as best you can in whatever situation that you're in. And usually things will go a little more in cooperation at the very least, and hopefully in a better outcome as well. I want to thank you for your time, Eric, and everyone listening in. In the show notes, we'll have something for Eric to be able to get on his wait list for the book. And I hope that you enjoyed some stories from an FBI agent, and we'll keep some interesting guests coming. I've got a pipeline full of a lot of different people doing a lot of different things. So I hope that it'll add to not only the health fitness aspect of the show, but the other underlying point that I want to make is, like, men are out here doing things and they need connection and they need opportunity and different things like that. So, all right, off we go. Thanks so much for joining us on this episode of Driven for Health.
Thank you, Brian.